Did you enjoy that one?
Yeah.
I don't think we came to any conclusion. Just
I didn't. Zero conclusions. Yes.
What is Black culture? Well, today it seems to be a ubiquitous force, a special spice sprinkled in every stew pot in the world. It's a flavor, an energy mimicked, adopted, adapted, adored, and adornment people think they can just hang around their necks like costume jewelry. Don't they know Black culture is precious metal? It's heavy and gorgeous. Don't we know Black culture is more than an outfit and an accent and a slick tongue? It's more than a creative way to do and say everything. It's more than fresh, more than wailing the blues and jazz and soul and 2 turntables and a mic, a beatbox, a breakbeat, a beat machine, a stage show. It's more than a good joke and a belly laugh loud enough to remember that Black culture is more than pain. More than a patchwork of bodies in the bowels of a boat. It's more than blood in the blue water. Black culture is transatlantic. Black culture is more than the Americas, the Caribbean, and Europe, and it doesn't begin where freedom ends. Black culture begins where life does, in Africa.
What's up? What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the In the Zone podcast. It's your boy B. Foster. Brian Foster's in the building. Welcome to another episode, another happy Wednesday. We got some warm temps.
Yeah, they acting a fool.
Black folks out here shooting. That's how you know summer's...
That's what you want to talk about?
That's how you know summer's
not
coming.
Not all the people on the boats, not all people riding their bikes, all the people shooting.
I saw people get shot at when they was on their bike.
I saw people on their boats. Speaking of our guest, who we'll talk about in a second.
Nah, it's been a nice couple of days. We gonna enjoy it. We gonna enjoy it. But you did see 21 people got shot yesterday.
I didn't see it. I saw it on the news.
I saw 8 of them. That shit was crazy.
You were there?
I was shooting.
Oh shit.
Nah, anyway.
Don't say that too loud.
No, please come knocking on the door. Beef, is it locked? Hey, great episode last week. Got a lot of feedback. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I really think you'll enjoy this episode. You know, on In the Zone, we talk about a little bit of everything. We get a little raunchy. We get a little serious. We get a little crazy. We get a little sad occasionally. This one, I think, is going to be a combination of all of it.
Sad?
It could be. I get a little sad talking about this sometimes, depending on the lane we get to.
All right.
So this week, we are going to be discussing whether or not we as African Americans have a true culture. Some will say yes. Some will say no. Some will say we're a culture in the making. We have 2 very opinionated people that speak no holds barred. And I'm going to introduce our guest right now. First of all, in studio, you've seen my man on several episodes of The Blackboard. Known him for longer than I care to admit at this point.
A little too long.
A little too long, but not long enough. My man Jakari, what's happening, baby?
What's happening? We known each other for a long time. You still ain't let me on your boat.
Oh. Well, in all fairness, have you been on his boat?
Wait, I think he just got that boat.
Oh.
He's like he just got it.
Oh.
I like you trying to have my back, though.
Right.
But see, what happened was COVID, and then, yeah.
All these.
We're going to remedy that this summer. We're going to tie up together. And then, not in studio, but streamed in, I was just telling my folks in studio, I can't believe this woman was my boss at one point in time in my life. It was a low period for me. But this is my girl, Venita G. What's going on, Venita?
Hey, sorry I couldn't be in studio, but family was exposed to COVID, so I'm trying to keep it safe. I do want to say it is not officially summer in Chicago until a bunch of white people collapse on a porch. That is how you know summer in Chicago has started. So wait for that news story, and it's there.
We wait for that story, okay.
Facts. Yeah, I can't even argue that.
Every
I was at a Cubs game Saturday, and I think they are ready for that to happen. Because I saw a gang of them on the porch. I was like, that can't be safe. Yeah. Funny fact, actually, too. Talking about Venita and I working together. If everybody knows Lovey, the columnist and social media extraordinaire. Y'all don't know Lovey?
I can't say I do.
All right. Well, I know the people out there, several of you know her. She actually was our intern one summer And now she is a New York Times bestseller.
Two times bestseller, yeah.
2 times in the New York
And
bestseller.
our co-worker Kimbrielle won a Pulitzer, so there were a lot
That's
of
right.
stars, a lot of stars in the building. Yeah.
A lot of stars in the building. Not us two, but
Not me either. I've not written
I'm a
anything.
Stanford fellow. I don't know about you, but I'm a star. Yeah.
Stanford passes out fellows like bank give out vice president titles. That ain't shit.
Right.
Anyway, hey, thanks for joining us. I want to dive into this. Let's just start with the baseline. What is a culture before we even dive into it, if we have one? Jay, what would you define a culture as?
Yeah, so for me, culture always comes down to land, language, and I guess attached to land, you could say food, but history, and really for me, it's like, culture isn't just is more so like a verb, right? It's like this idea of using those elements of land, language, history to really kind of keep your lineage moving forward, and the idea of like where you all want to go as a people.
Venita, how would you define culture?
I also think culture is a verb, right? It's actionable. But I don't think it's like tied to land. I think it's a way of life. It's how we do things. It's tied to memory and being. But I do think it's actionable.
Got you. Sean, are you about to give me the
Miriam. Miriam.
You about to give me the white man's
does
definition?
such an excellent job defining it. I mean, if you want my perspective, similar to Jakari, not so much the land aspect, but definitely language, rituals, holidays, relatedness to me, like how you relate to the people of your same religion or ethnicity or whatever, how you relate to them, how you communicate to them. I think those all are elements of culture.
Okay. What does Merriam-Webster say?
She says, she has a bunch of definitions. We'll take the one that's most applicable. The customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group.
I mean, it has more than one of those definitions on
It's
that
like
list.
6!
Just pick one that you like. And then it include land. Like,
None of them include land.
Try to freeze your land. People.
No.
that's culture with a lowercase
I
c.
mean,
We're talking about culture with a capital C.
If we do the verb, maintain tissue cells, bacteria in conditions suitable
We're not
for
talking
growth.
We're not talking about in a
like
petri
that.
dish though. But that could be spun off. I think where all of you all have tied something together, and where I really see culture as what it is, where I feel it is, and Jakari touched on the history and the connectivity, right? I think that's, and we can spin off that to a lot of different factors, but I think those are the two roots of it. The history, like how far back can we trace that this actually was a thing we've owned, possessed, we started, it was our thing, and then how it connects us as a people, across land, across time, across generations. So that leads us to the crux of this conversation, and we're going to get it kicked off. I'm going to start with my hostess, just because I always like to start with her. 'Cause she kicks shit up.
No, I don't.
No, I don't. Whenever she gets that octave raised, it's about to be some
Actually,
bullshit.
when my octave drops is when it's
Oh, I misread you all this
Yeah,
time. My
yeah.
apologies. Do we have a culture as African Americans?
Absolutely, we have a culture.
Talk to me about it.
Do we have... It's okay. This is not like a simple answer. And I hope we get into this right. Because my sense is that we compare the rituals and the language that we do have as Black people to other cultures, Asian, Mexican, yada yada, sis boom bada, where they have very clear like costumes,
Did
very
you say
clear.
sis boom bada?
I did. Very clear holiday, Cinco de Mayo. I think we compare ourselves to them, which is to me not the way to look at it. Right. One of the things I found myself really paying attention to when we even agreed to have this conversation was how we speak to each other and the word be. Just how we utilize the word be in conversation. We be like. You have to listen to the sentence structure. We don't use it properly. It is not the King's English whatsoever. But there is a cadence, and it has to be placed properly in the sentence for Black people, for us to understand what you mean. You just can't be like bees, 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 bees. We'd be like, what? What are you talking about? So we do have things that are distinct to us. We do have handshakes. We do have food. me and my daughter's father were talking about pizza puff and how my daughter hasn't experienced certain things that we grew up with as black kids, like gyros and gyro burgers and just mild sauce on fries. Like, they're just things that she has not interacted with, that if you ask any black person in general, of course there are outliers, they know exactly what you're talking about. So yes, of course we have those things.
It's interesting that you use gyro burgers and gyros as the example of us
but it is
in our
true.
culture, considering that's not us. But that's
no,
Greek,
but
I mean, you know,
Pizza.
pizza pub.
But
yeah,
in the aspect of America, what in American culture is strictly American? It's all spin-offs off German culture, African culture, French culture. There is nothing distinct in America that was homegrown in America except technology. Everything else, our language, our food, are offshoots of other cultures.
That's a fair point. Venita?
Yeah, so I would still say there are, for me, having grown up in New Orleans, there are things that are distinctly Black American and distinctly like Southern that have spread out across the country. So from gumbo to, like how Black people in this country took that as a French dish and flipped it. So I think there are things that are uniquely Black, from jazz music. Jazz was born in church on a Sunday in New Orleans, from blues to rock and roll, which has been taken and flipped into mainstream, but that is Black, all the way to hip hop. So I think there are a lot of things that are uniquely Black. I agree that I feel like as Black people, we compare ourselves to other cultures, and if we feel like we can't go back 10,000 years, or if we don't have a unique holiday or certain costumes that are kind of uniform across Blackness, then we don't feel like we have a culture. And I feel like we're missing so many of the good things that we have created. From sitting in between your mother's knees, getting your hair done and getting your hair braided, that is Black, right? Mm-hmm. From like creased jeans and looking fresh on the first day of school, that is Black. To very clean sneakers, that is Blackness. Because only Black men rock like the cleanest sneakers. Like, I've seen men of other cultures in sneakers, and I know like a Black man would never come outside in those shoes. So even that's Blackness. I think we're overlooking like some of the things that we bring to the mix.
Clean gym shoes is our culture. Jesus Christ.
What's wrong with that? And Gorman, I just saw a comment that there's a bit of feedback when Venita is speaking.
Yeah.
Just Venita, make sure. I don't know if you're playing us in the background. That could be creating a little bit of feedback. So, yeah. Sorry. Culture.
Yeah. I think that comment, clean gym shoes, I think that hit for me because that's a commonality, right? That's something that we do and we share and we have in common. But for me, commonality doesn't make culture, right? Like, if that's the case, then you start off talking about the shootings, right? When the weather gets warm. Is that our culture? Or is that just a common thing that happens amongst Black people? I think it's interesting when folk, and let me stop and just say, like, no, we don't have culture. Like, we have lowercase c culture, and any people that exist in a common space at any particular time will have lowercase c. They'll have common things that they do, say, ways that they say things, things that they ways that they dress. But that's not capital C culture. Specifically, when we're talking about Black folks and Black business, we're talking about capital C, which is because it's an important question, right? It's a reason why you ask the question of, do we have culture? It's something associated with that. So you got to go back in history and think about this idea of the first thing that was taken from us was land, language, ritual, right?
Right.
To take away our culture. And I don't recall when we regained that back, right? We want to have culture. We do, because we know it's important. We just haven't gotten there yet. We don't have that common understanding of our land, our language, our history, and our rituals.
Yeah, I think you all make some great points, but I ride with Jakari here. I think we're talking about, and it's an important distinction, right? Capital C and little c when we're talking about culture. I think, and you all, Jakari and Venita both said that is a verb. It is an action. It is active. And I think we are in the process of forming culture. Now, my thing is, I'm not even really sure what that is. And that's where I get stuck on the fact that we don't really have it, because I can't really put my finger on it. We can say these things, these ritualistic things we've picked up while we've been in America. Mm-hmm. But where's that rooted in? Who's that based in? Now, Venita, you might say, I'm from New Orleans and we do Mardi Gras and the walk and all that, the two-step or whatever the hell y'all do. I don't even know what y'all do. But see, I don't even know what to call it. So how cultural is it?
But culture can be, you think all of Africa, let's use Mexico, a much smaller place. You think all of Mexico, they do all the same things? So there can be subsects within the culture. Absolutely.
So I agree. So riddle me this.
Yeah.
What is at the essence of Latin culture? Give me three things you could off the top of your head.
Anything I say would be
is it gonna be food
completely bigoted. So I feel like I should avoid it. I mean,
come on, you're the expert.
I definitely not by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, you think of food if you think of celebrations, quinceañeras. Mm-hmm. I would definitely think of something like that. You think of the big dresses with all the levels of frills on it, that's off the shoulder. You think about that. You think of a sombrero.
That's not racist. That's a thing.
It feels
kind of is.
I'm trying.
Because we should dig deeper than that, right? That's highly surface.
No, I'm
super surface.
It's super surface, but that was my point, actually. That on the super surface, you can pick some things, and it might be, you might feel racist or saying it, but you can pick some things out, right? If you say African American culture, what are we picking? What are our celebrations? Where our history rooted? What are the things that we're bonded around universally for the most part? I mean, we have some area, like the South does things different from maybe the East Coast, and so we got some of that.
Yeah.
But give me three things that are African American culture.
Macaroni and cheese.
Macaroni and cheese.
Fun fact.
Okay, macaroni and cheese.
No. Now look, that is not necessarily notated with Black culture, but fun fact: the person who created macaroni and cheese was a Black slave.
Okay.
I'll get into the details. He worked for Thomas Jefferson. He was the brother of a Miss Sally. What's her last name? That he raped? Thank you. It was her brother. And he created mac and cheese.
All right, boom.
Thomas Jefferson appropriated it and served it to people and called it his own creation.
Well, we're going to get an appropriation.
But yes. I mean, if you want to look at it that is a really good example of it.
Mac and cheese.
So thousands of years noodles existed.
You're right.
In slavery, some Black person decided to put cheese on it.
And that's what we got.
We've been putting cheese on stuff ever since.
That's how things go. Y'all act like things just pop. Things evolve. You don't just magically think of clothes. You think African clothes didn't evolve over many, many centuries? You think somebody just woke up one day in 1 BC and they kept the same cultural outfits for all eternity?
Somewhat, but that's my point.
No, they
right? We are planting seeds, I think, but I'm having a hard time pinpointing what those seeds are going to grow into. Vanita, I want you to get back in here.
Yeah, I think when I think of things that are unique to Black folk, I still hear I'm trying to fix the reverb and don't know how to fix it. And you talking crazy. So when I think of things that are uniquely Black, I think of call and response. That is unique to Black folks, right? So, and not even just call and response in Black church. You hear a song on the radio and you stomp your foot. You're like, come on, sing it then. That is unique to Black people. And you that may not be a big cultural thing, but it's culture. What I hear y'all saying, or I hear you're talking about a disconnect from African culture because we were stolen people, we were enslaved people, right? So there is a disconnect from African culture. But I don't think that means that we didn't come here and forge our own culture within kind of this bigger picture of whatever America is. And I see people in the comments talking about American culture and that we're part of it. Actually, no, Black culture has driven the majority of American culture, right? So I would say that we are American culture, not that we're a part of it. We are, or at least a huge, if it's a pie, we're a 80% of that pie.
So I got a question for the non-believers in the culture. I think you know where I'm going.
I don't. Let's go.
I gave you the question earlier yesterday.
I don't remember. I was drinking.
So if there's no culture, right, what are non-blacks appropriating, Jakari? Like the cornrows, what are they appropriating? The kente, well, not the fake kente cloth. What are they appropriating? Hip hop, what are they appropriating?
The way that we do things. It's not necessarily our culture, though. We can do things and people can mock what we do as we do it as a collective. Like,
Well, wouldn't that not be appropriation? Wouldn't that just be
say-
copycatting?
Now you're talking about cultural appropriation.
Yes.
I guess that's a term people apply to it, but I don't necessarily know just because you apply a term to something, it means like now that means we have culture, like just because of that, like. But
Well, no, I don't.
But I do think they are like mocking or and so this is interesting too, right? Because the reason why they're able to appropriate our culture is because it's as you said, it's American culture, right? Like, so it is their culture too. So they can come in and say, "There's no such thing as black music. It's just music," and all that kind of stuff. But if you talk about, I'm trying not to be racist as well. If you talk about like, let's say Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, or Irish, Italians, or whatever, right? Like you can not appropriate. I mean, you can like be a fucking racist and speak in their accents and things like that, but you can't be them because who their culture is always ties back to their
roots.
land. You think about when you first visualize those people, one of the first things I think when I visualize when somebody says Irish, I think of the Irish flag. Somebody says Puerto Rican, I think of the Puerto Rican flag because those flags are attached to a piece of land which is representative of who they are. We don't have that.
Well, what do you think when you think of black? Do you just like blank?
I think, in all honesty, when I think of black, I think of a starting point of slavery. I think of a point when we lost culture.
Okay, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
You?
No, I agree with them on that. I think, and that's what I was saying. We were talking about it's a verb and it's active, and I'm hoping that some seeds have been planted. I completely agree. We people want to say that our culture is tied back, that it didn't end because we were stolen and brought here, but for the majority of us, sure. Right, like even if you can trace your heritage back to your tribe, and some folks can, I couldn't, because my lineage was all over the map. Even if you can, right, like what's your real tie to that though? Unless you got some people that had ties there and have carried that forward now. Now you can go try to make that reconnection, but how hard is that when you don't have anybody to build that bridge for you? So if you're talking about straight African American culture, I think about the day it died, and I hope that we're creating something of our own. I just don't really see it.
Well, what seeds are... Because you've said that a few times during the show, that you feel like there are seeds being planted. What are those seeds? Because that's curious to me.
Yeah, I think... Jakari, did you want to jump on that? Go ahead.
Yeah,
I don't know if you agree with him.
I definitely agree. I think, like I said before, I think we want to have culture. I think we are trying to connect to it, and there are stints of time that we make real, like the Black Renaissance, right? Like we made an honest attempt to like reconnect back to our land, our language, and you saw the Black Arts movement come out of that, and then you saw the Black Power movement come out of that, and then now you see us connecting back to the dress. You see us connecting back. We start using our Swahili. We're connecting back to the language. We're identifying Africa as the place of our origin and not the South, right? Like, so we've been making, and we do that periodically because there are groups of people who are really interested in, because they see that culture as our liberation. Right? They see that as an important part of us being able to connect to each other and say, this is the point where if you ask a Mexican person what they believe in as far as like as a collective, or let's say an Asian person, right? And I'm, again, not being racist, but one thing you see when you see Asian people driving, what they drive?
A Subaru?
Asian cars.
Oh,
Asian-made cars, because they understand at least one thing, one common idea is economics for them. Like they understand that, they connect to it, and they share it universally, and that's their thing. But we don't. We try to do that, and we start saying buy black and all that kind of stuff. We try to make those connections, but it's just when we are able to do that, I think we'll regain culture. But we tend to like forget that we was doing that every once in a while.
And I want to. That's a good point. And Jamal, I see you out there. I think us having faced a shared adversity, does not define a culture. I think that's just a shared experience. That's So, but I hear what you're going, brother. When I say plant the seeds, I'm thinking specifically. Venita mentioned earlier hip hop, jazz, like that is definitively us.
Yeah.
Right. So those seeds have been planted. But this is where I started to struggle. Like everything I think about the seeds that we've been planted they're almost all entertainment or fashion based or something like that. And to Jakari's point, there's no economic, religious, even fashion. Like, none of that stuff is to an extent. Like we don't really own it.
Music.
Yeah, we don't own any of it.
I'm thinking through what you just said.
Come on, Venita.
Sometimes I think you're muted. You're muted.
That might have been. B might have done.
Oh.
I didn't mute her.
Oh, you got.
She's not
No,
muted.
What's going on?
your sound is gone. Can't hear you.
Right, she's not muted.
Can't hear you, V.
Apparently, we're having technical difficulties.
Let me see.
Jamal, don't tell me I don't know what the hell culture is because you don't agree with me, boy.
We should have him on the show.
Y'all are tying culture to capitalism with a lot of these statements, and that to me is like talking about the cars, and that's not culture. That's capitalism. That's owning something. I think you have culture, and I don't think it has to be tied to land necessarily, and I for sure don't think it's tied to kind of owning things, because if that's our driving force, and like then I think we're screwed. To think of a people who fought their way out of slavery and then fought our way out of American apartheid, and to even be just standing here and to say that we have created art forms, that we have created cultural renaissance, that we have created movements, to say we don't have a culture is like crazy to me. It's all around. We breathe it, we touch it. We are like, folks are just refusing to see it.
Well, give me your three things that define African American culture.
African American culture.
African American. That's the conversation. That's the conversation, not African.
That's what I've been talking about. I think music for sure. We have created so much music that most American music forms are based on right now. It's like from jazz to blues to gospel. That is Blackness that drives that. We even if we don't own fashion houses, we own fashion, because much of the fashion industry goes to the hood. See how black girls.
We are the tastemakers. She's right on that.
And then that's how they design. They're gonna know how black girls are watching stuff before they design. And so, like, we own fashion.
Okay, I gave you those two.
And I think even kind of within the context of social movements, we own that. So many, sorry, my dog has decided to make his appearance. From so many equal rights movements that you're seeing, so much of that is built upon the backs and the teachings of Black freedom fighters. So we even drive that. I think that
That's I like that. No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was agreeing with you. I like that last point.
Yeah, and I think food for sure, right? Because I don't know what folks were eating before they brought Africans here, but with food for sure, from macaroni and cheese to how we decided to take greens and dress those up in a different way. I think food. I really think that mainstream white supremacist culture has taught Black folks that we don't have a culture and that our contributions don't rate, and I think a lot of us have fallen into that.
Ooh, man.
No.
Yeah, nah. I never said our contributions didn't rate.
No.
Not at all.
Oh, she mad. Ooh.
Nah, look at you like
She
that.
got,
You like that. Nobody said they didn't rate. I said they don't define.
No. But what I picked up from what she said is, and I say this often, that white supremacy is so ingrained in everything we do, from the language to the thought process, that we a lot of the times do not know we are participating and contributing to it. I say that often. I don't say it often on here,
I don't disagree with that.
but I do say it. And this could be a very interesting example where we have been indoctrinated to a degree that we don't have a culture, and we've kind of bought into that. It's the same thing with the welfare queens. It's the same thing with a lot of perpetuating narratives that we have about African Americans. I actually am sitting here examining the thought that may be possibly what is really the baseline of this conversation.
I would say that if we weren't given the same three examples for what our culture was.
Well, what's wrong with
all
that?
and all of it's based around music fashion and food.
Well, so is Mexican culture. It's based around music, clothing, and food.
No, that's not all based around that. We've already said that they have traditions. They have celebrations.
We also
have what? What do we have?
Didn't we just talk about corn rolling the hair and spades game, backyard barbecues? Those are traditions.
I see white girls in Jamaica getting their hair braided every day.
That is not the same. It's not the same.
I just want to point out that fashion houses and what was the first thing she said?
I forgot.
Music. We're talking about
music. Those are, for me, those are capitalistic elements at this point. I get the historical, like when we created blues and tap and all that kind of stuff. Like I get the
That's not the flag I'm aware of.
I get the.
Wait, hold on.
That's the new.
You see?
That's news.
That's the new black flag.
Right.
Yeah. But and I wasn't saying that Asians driving cars that's part of their culture, them driving Asian cars. I think that's a result of them having culture. That's a consequence of them having a common understanding of like where they're going together as a people, and so for them it's necessary. I don't understand where our current music connects into our, and Jamal pointed out earlier, this idea of like connecting to a mission, a vision for the future. I don't understand where music, most of it right now, is connecting to a vision or a mission for the future. I don't understand.
Can we put that last Jamal comment?
Jamal just poking the bear now.
Holy shit! Jamal, they don't hate black people. Stop
I hate you. How about that?
Jamal is thirsty for culture. He want to see black people win, so he grabbing to whatever he can grab onto in hopes that that's going to save us.
I wish I had Jamal's cell phone number, because I would ask him to come up in here, but...
Oh, no, we don't want that.
Nah.
I tried, Jamal. I tried real hard.
Happy anniversary, by the way, brother.
Oh, I didn't see that.
What?
I got sidetracked from Jamal.
Hold on. V, do you need to go handle something?
I just had an emergency pop up. I'm sorry, y'all.
No, go ahead. Jump back in if you can.
Okay.
Me too. I'll see y'all later.
Now I gotta hold this down alone.
Maybe we do. No, Jamal, call in. I'm gonna send you the link. Damn it.
So okay, all right.
No Jamal. No Jamal.
Come on, Jamal. Okay, so all right, so you all have clearly decided there is no culture. What do we need to have a culture? All right, we got land. Fine. What else? Our own cars that we drive ourselves? Like, what else do we need?
Yes.
We need a dress? Do we all got to wear dashikis? Like, what do we got to do?
Is that our culture? That wouldn't be our culture.
I think we need
the
verb.
appropriation of the dashiki kind of is, at least during the 70s. But
no, that was finding roots back to Africa though, so that's different. If we're talking about a straight, clean slate, nothing based, rooted in our Africanism, that's a different conversation than going back to from whence we came, which I'm completely fine with, by the way. If that's where we want to start our roots in that conversation and even spinning some of that off, I'm cool with that.
In Africa, you mean?
But that's a good point. Like, we need that common understanding of where we're going to be, where we're going to, like, I think we need the verb, the action part of culture. Like, I think it's great to have this idea, be able to say, like, we did this, we did that. We did do all those things. But, I mean, really, where has it gotten us? Like, right? We've just gotten into a different form of slavery. We're still oppressed. Now we're making music for other people. We don't even have that no more. Like, I think we have to have this common understanding so that we can then begin to say, all right, these are the things that we stand on, because it connects back to how we cultivate our culture. And from there, we can start building and actually like building in the right direction, as opposed to just really kind of just keeping somebody else's culture going.
Well, we talked to this very high level. I want like some examples. Like, what are examples? Like, if tomorrow somebody came and said, Brian Jakari, we need 4 elements of black culture, create them now, go.
And I would say, Shontelle, what do you think? That's the whole point.
I already think we got them. So
that's the whole point. I don't know. I don't have the answers. Like, I don't know. I'm not sitting here saying, like, this is absolutely the definition of culture. I could be completely wrong. Somebody else can be completely right. Or it's somewhere in between. Like,
but we're here to give our opinions. Nobody's going to walk away.
My opinion is not steadfast one way or the other. My opinion can evolve. Like, if you can convince me of the purpose and the intent and the benefit of it evolving.
You?
So we're looking. You say we're looking for some definitive action items.
I'm just This is my job in general.
No. Yeah, I did project manager. Hold on. That's shit. I think I created this question. I didn't even think about it. I would say one of them is definitely like rallying around. Here you go, rallying around.
Oh, no.
Hold on, y'all know him, y'all loving. Y'all have seen him on several episodes. He's been on the Blackboard. He's been on his own podcast. It's my man, 50 Grand Jamal. What's going on, Jam?
Shout out, good people. Great topic. Glad to be here. Can y'all hear me?
We in trouble now.
At least one of us are glad to be here.
I'm happy Jamal is here.
I think so. I think we need, if we all rally. Listen, so we were talking about holidays, right? Mm-hmm. Not that holidays are the basis of anything, but I think they can be a linchpin and a starting point. So we all rally around Juneteenth. Is what we got. Let's
right now.
And Martin Luther King Day.
How many holidays would make a culture?
I want 4. I want one a season.
If I can jump in real quick, the majority of our holidays have some type of black influence with it. Like even if you take the 4th of July, the first folks to celebrate independence was black folks, and then what we have here is really no offense, but
too late.
There's a lack of knowledge, right? Like when we talk about education, it was black folks that made education the thriving entity it was. Sure, Horace Mann created the entity, but it was black folks that increased the amount of schools nationwide, and then segregation tried to take it back from us once they saw how education was changing our livelihood. So, I mean, when you look at the roots and the origins of almost everything in America, everything has a black influence to it. It's ridiculous, man.
I'm not arguing. We're not arguing that our influence isn't nationwide. Isn't from the inception, the birth of a nation, so to speak. Nobody's arguing against that. And when I said ownership, Venita took it to mean like capitalism and ownership in a monetary sense. I mean, we don't, and kind of do, but we don't internally like. So you're saying. We were the first to celebrate 4th of July. And I'm aware of those histories and those roots. But so, like, it's not our holiday. It just isn't. It just isn't.
Okay. So when we talk about ours and theirs, right? The essence of ownership of identity becomes very skewed in a place where you could grab and take anything, especially from people who didn't have a right to have ownership of anything.
Agreed.
So anything that we created that was on point was quickly stolen. Doesn't mean it wasn't ours. Doesn't mean we weren't the originating factor behind it. But the fact that we don't get any credit for it is why I immediately spoke to, and I love Jakari speaking to this whole slavery piece, creating black culture, because that is when black was created. As a matter of fact, it was really created when slavery was ended, right? So they had to define us to try to keep slavery. It didn't work. The blackness was created. But there is a culture behind it, because once it was created, the survival of those people under the most extreme of adversity created a culture, culture is nothing but what's the word? Accumulation of how you do things, right? It's the totality of how a people, group, or organization does things. And the fact that we are still here today on this show being able to argue about our culture is crazy, because it was only culture that sustained us. Sure, it's a makeshift culture. Sure, it has negativities. Sure, there's problems within it. But to deny its existence is absolute madness.
Well, let me ask you this, Jamal, because I asked everybody else, and I'm gonna let you jump again, Jakari. If you could give me the top 3 or 4 things that define African American culture, what would you call? What would you claim them?
First, I claim survivorship, right? The fact that we have the code switching, the duality of
we do our own code switching. He ain't lying there.
A language, we've got language. There's a whole subset of every language that falls within black culture. There's the whole education piece, even though it's kicking us in the butt right now. Let's be clear, there was a time when, education, we were murdered for learning, but yet we still learn. and yet we're still here. There's a culture within there. There's a culture of the family. Like this whole nuclear family boo-hoo that they put on us, man, that was a derivative of the black struggle trying to stay together. We're the owners and essence of family. And sure, we've been denied it and I don't even know what the term would be, but to the point that we don't value it as much as we used to, but it's still ours. And to act like it's not, man, we're missing the boat here. And so we would go dance, of course, we go any type of entertainment, we own that. We will go fashion, we own that. Man, if we saw housing, the real estate, right? And the fact that the ghettos and what have you was nothing but an amalgamation of keeping people of similar creations together, that's us too, man. All of this is ours.
Scar?
I agree. It is ours, but I still don't think that makes it culture, bro. Like that's like that. Those are things those are historical facts, things that we've done, ways that we've contributed. Like, but in terms of like, to your point, the idea of us sitting here having this conversation, if we had culture, there wouldn't be a question. There wouldn't be a question in our minds of whether or not we have culture. You don't ask a Mexican, you don't ask a Puerto Rican, you don't ask an Asian, do you have culture? Because it's facts. You know it, you see it, you understand it. But we don't have that. We would love to. We just don't have it. We have a history. We have history. We have Africanisms. We have all of those things. But that does not mean that we have culture right now, at this moment in history, that's, to your point, your statement earlier, that is going to contribute to our mission, vision of moving forward as a collective. We have things that people, we have things that people are allowing us to do, and will they allow us to put out music that is not necessarily helpful to us right now, but they're allowed, and we call it that culture, but we're allowed to do that because they're allowed to do that because it's not ours.
But Jakari, wait, so now I'm confused because initially you said, or at least you agree with.
Wait, are you trying to catch me up?
Yes, 100%.
I feel a trap coming.
You aligned with the fact that history is a part of culture early in this conversation, correct? Mm-hmm. And you just noted that we have history.
Yes.
So how can you be on both sides of that argument by saying we have history, yet we have no culture? Something about that is a huge disconnect. And we have a history that we are very clear on. We understand Martin Luther King. We understand slavery. We understand Reconstruction. We understand the Black Church. See, Brian jumping in. Yes, we have all these nuances in our history, whether we know it at a high level, because most of us do, and I will never negate that. We know those things at a high level, but we still know them, and we're taught them poorly.
Do we all know them? That would be
point.
Jamal made this point about lack of knowledge.
We don't have the knowledge.
But
collectively,
I would say at a very high level, you can go ask any black person. You could spit and ask them about Martin Luther King. They will give you some very high level point about him. You still know about him. Do you know about the nuances of him? No, because our educational system sucks. But you still know it, and you still have.
We got Martin Luther King. Who else we got?
You got Rosa Parks.
You
got that love. You got goddamn
Rosa Parks was like the fourth person to say.
You have lots of people you can say. You have Shirley Chisholm. You have a lot of people.
Chisel. Who is Shirley Chisholm?
Whatever. Chisholm, whatever. My boy in education popped out.
Jamal,
but my point still would last.
Hold on, B. You feel like you have something to say.
I do actually. I have something real big to say.
Come on. You got a mic?
I think, well, my mic isn't on, but y'all can hear me. I think that our pursuit of what our idea of success is brings us to whiteness, right? And the more that we chase after that, the more that we lose what our culture is. So all of these things that you say that that Mexicans and everything have, the more that they chase that whiteness, which we're seeing right now, they're going to lose their culture too. They're going to try to be white, and they're going to forget all about the fact that they wore sombreros. Like that's
I don't think they will, because they can always
back on that sombrero
because they still got that sombrero because what that's how y'all racist as hell. But what Jakar said earlier is, at the end of the day, they can tie their beliefs, their systems, and everything else, as much as they chasing that white American dream, back to Mexico, and the motherfuckers in Mexico ain't thinking about it.
That's why the land is important.
But the longer that they're here, the more that they forget that.
But
you gotta watch. You got to just watch how right now you have more Mexicans trying to be Republicans. And there's a reason for that. Because they're chasing success of what they believe.
What they believe is success.
Right? And the more that they chase that, the more that they lose that identity that we have lost. We've lost that identity of who we are. But that doesn't mean that we don't have culture. Everything that we do is culture. Everything that we do is culture. And so there's things that we actually see eye to eye on, like just that whole nod that we do when we see each other.
No doubt.
That's fucking culture.
Mm.
It is.
No.
Because it's...
It is, though. He's not wrong. I agree with him.
So
the fact you know the call and response, you know how to respond to people. They say, sup. Like, what's up? You know how to respond to people. These are
Hey, Jeff. Hi, buddy. What the fuck are we talking about here? Like, nobody else does this.
Absolutely.
Now, they don't do it the way we do it, but they do a version of it, their own version.
Okay.
Everybody has their own little
But everybody has a version of food. What does that mean? Nobody has culture because everybody got their version of food?
No, I'm saying you're saying that that's culture because you have that version. I'm saying there's something specific to that that's unique. Saying what's up to somebody. White people say what's up all the time.
No, but they don't say stuff. They like, what's up, guy? Like, no, it's not the same. It's not the same.
I know. Come on, Shirley Chisholm.
I will stick with B. The way we use B. Listen next time.
Hold on.
Listen to it.
She's claiming Ebonics as the language.
What's wrong? Here's the thing that I keep hearing. But why not? We use B, and that is just an example. There are other words in a very specific way. It is a specific sentence structure. You cannot use it inaccurately because we will call you out on it.
Please give me an example of this. I don't do the whole B thing.
God damn, I can't even think of an example.
Come
Yes,
on.
you do, because I talk to you.
Talking.
That's a really bad one.
I don't be doing that.
Yes, you do.
I don't be doing
I
that.
talk to you all the time. And yes, you do.
She don't know our culture.
You do it all the time.
I didn't even know our coach. I gave her a bone right there.
But my point
Shirley
is,
Chisholm would have known what I was doing right there. Come on, Jamal. I know you all back here.
I do. First, I really need to hear from you two brothers how you guys are defining culture, because you've been telling us what culture ain't. But y'all
they said it was land and language.
You missed the beginning of the show, I guess.
You missed it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Land, language, and something.
So until we get the United States of blackness, then we can't have culture. Is that what y'all saying? Forget that we own Detroit. Forget that we own Chicago. Forget that we own...
No. By land, what? Jakar, I'm not going to speak for you. Talk to him about land. I'm not even going.
When I say land, I mean a common point of ancestry. So when you say Irish, you could say that common point of ancestry. And the reason why that's so important is because it's a unifying factor. It's something that we can all go back and say, this is where we come from as a collective. So we can now have a point of reference to have a mission and vision for the future.
So why can't we do that with the South?
Because it's not ours.
But that's a point of origin.
Because that's not where we started. That's not our origin.
So
because now everything is relative to white folk.
Well, hold it, Jakari. If we're talking about where everyone started from, then we have to get rid of this facade of race, right? As soon as we remove the facade of race, we get rid of this idea of blackness. And then we get back to this idea where we know we're from the continent. Everyone's from the continent. So what are we really talking about? So if we're talking about now this construct of culture, which is based on race, then we can't win. You're right. We can't win as long as we're calling ourselves black people. But then the truth of it is we're African Americans. Why? Because we have ownership in America. We got rights to this land, brother. We bled and died for it. And we got rights to Africa. And we don't ever want to let that loose. So that whole identity piece becomes huge. And so, going by the construct of some racist men who said, you guys are going to be called Negroid, black, whatever else term color, that stuff does divest you of a land ownership. But then we do have to be smart enough to say, well, no, we got rights to two types of land. The land right here, because we died for it, and the land over there. I mean, military ownership, we've done it all, man. And so to deny that as a piece of our culture, again, it's absolutely crazy to me, man. We've done too much. We've overcame too much, and we are the only people. This is why you don't have the issue with the Irish and the Mexicans. They have completely had their identity completely obliterated. We're the only folks. They didn't do it to the Irish. The Irish was allowed to still be Irish when they came to America. Italians were still allowed to be Italian when they came to America. The only
Asians,
people,
even the native people, they still have their
even native folks.
culture.
Hey,
Well, still on their land.
Welcome to the conversation. glad you showed up finally. Actually, no, where you started is I was actually saving that for where I would close out. So I don't know. But I'll come back to that. But yeah, I think you're right. Everyone has a common land.
Yeah.
So
shifters.
I was just about to shift.
I see you shifting. Let's come on.
How you feel my vibrations?
Whenever you bring the questions up, I know.
They've been there. They ain't never left. So let's shift gears a bit and make this a little ratchety, right? Because we've been real serious, real educated. Even though I fucked up the lady's name, but I digress.
That's all right. That's all right. We lost like 10 people being smart. Let's get ratchet. I bet we get 10 more back. Come on.
Doesn't even matter. Does having a culture at this stage in 2022 even fucking matter?
Yes. If it didn't
I need more than that. And why does it matter? Like, what does it get us?
All right. So
I think that we're hold on, real quick, Jam. Let's jump in. I'm gonna be real quick about this. I think,
unlike Jamal,
because you know Jamal about to go. I think I didn't say Jamal. She did. I think it's important because I think a lot of and Jamal touched on this earlier, and Angelo Jakari in a way. I think a lot of why we're even having this question in this debate is because our original history was stripped, right? And a lot of the way we find out all this history Jamal spoke to that we had our hands in part of that a lot of our folks don't know, can't be tied to, can't point to, can give you some real high level shit about Martin Luther King and maybe Malcolm X, and that might be it, right? We find ourselves in I think the position we are in right now as a people because we have been stripped of so much. We're so undereducated about our own under our own value. But if we had something a little bit more defined, and I guess that's what I guess at the end of the day, I'm not saying we don't have culture. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I wish our culture was a little bit more easily definable by all of us, that we had some really clear things that all of us understood and could, as Jakar said, grasp to for a path for the future, and we don't. And that's not by any fault of our own, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Go.
Jamal.
So if culture is the sum total of how you do things, culture is nothing more than a manifestation of leadership, right? National leaders or what have you, they start to define the culture. And I think you guys are speaking to it, is that leadership isn't necessarily good. Sometimes leadership can lead you in the wrong direction. It's good leadership and bad leadership. And I think our culture spectrum has been moving towards this negative side, and it's so negative that a lot of folks would rather say we don't have culture, even though the culture sometimes we're manifesting is of a negative behavior, like our music right now. Our music is very debilitating, puts you in a real poor mindset, and almost motivates you to do some negative things, right? Even our food, you know, it was a scavenger's diet. You know, you had to eat what was available, and it ain't the best for our bodies, man, but that's still a part of our culture. So I won't deny that our culture has some negative aspects to it, but what's most important is our lack of leadership, right? There's a lack of a definable entity that moves us all in one accord, and without that, we have what we're having here. Some people denying that there's culture, many people upset that the culture's on the negative side, but to act as if there is no culture, especially when it's the sum total of how you do things, which is going to be the essence of our improving our plight. Well, we have to embrace our culture and then make it what we want it to be. Right, and I think that's the crux of this conversation is, well, how do you change the culture? You got a bad organization, a bad business, you change the culture. You got a bad football team, and this is why I jumped so big on culture, because I coached for a long time, and I had to turn bad teams around. And the first thing you do is change the culture. You find new leadership. You identify new morals and values and principles and codes. And once you do that, man, watch the team rise. And we're just a team that's struggling right now. We need a coach. We hadn't had a coach since Malcolm X, Martin King, and Shirley Chisholm. What we call it? What was the name?
Shirley Chisholm.
I'm glad I could leave us with a little humor in the conversation.
I started off when I defined culture. I said a common understanding of those elements, right? You know, so I think it's the common point is important when we talk about is culture important. I think it is important because if we have a common understanding, then we can have a common set of priorities. And if you ask anybody what the black priority is, we all over the place. We don't know. We don't have a common understanding of What are our things that we need to focus on? And because of that, we can't, and I say this over and over again, we can't create a strategic plan to how to get to wherever our goal is. We don't even know what our goal is. But for me, I think culture is important. For me. Because I think it's an opportunity for us to be able to have a common understanding somewhere, something that unifies us, so that we can then say, these are our priorities as a collective to move forward.
You sound, Sean, you pose the question as if you don't think it's a necessity.
So my answer is complicated. I think as long as we stay invested in trying to be like white people, then no, it doesn't. Because that is the culture. Capitalism, whatever else white people do. I can't even define white culture, which to me means if these are all the definition, they have no culture either, right? But I want to
pause this really quick. We've been very careful about saying how we don't want to be racist to all these other cultures, and we dissing white people this whole show. But go ahead.
So if we completely divest from trying to be white, then yes, it matters. So I guess it just really depends. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to be a part of capitalism? Are you trying to move to the suburbs where it's safe? What are you trying to accomplish? That was shots fired.
Shoot at me. I may be outside riding a bike right now, and I ain't worried about it.
No, I could get into a whole diatribe about how the suburbs are no safer than the city, but that's not that show.
I want to do that show.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll talk about that later. All right, so that's okay.
So yeah, it's a complicated answer.
That really wasn't that complicated, actually.
No. And I would double down and say I think the majority of black people are too invested in being white.
Invested in being white, or are we saying that capitalism is a white construct?
It is.
Because
it was not in Africa. That didn't come over until the settlers showed their ass up. So did rape and a host of other things, but I digress nonetheless.
Okay.
I like that.
I
like everything about what you just said.
You won't hear me argue that?
Oh, shit. I fucked up Shirley Chisholm's name, but I was right about that.
You rebounded. All right. Shirley Chisholm is proud of you again.
And just FYI, I got a text message that apparently I get my ass kicked for saying her name wrong. But
yeah, well, whoever's going to kick your ass is warranted.
Sorry. Oh, y'all say the right words all the time. Jeez.
When I'm trying to make a point, I try to get the names right.
Shut up. Shit. Oh my God, what are questions we didn't answer? We talked about steps. I don't know if we really even landed anything there. Advantages of a culture. Have we talked about that? I think we've kind of skated around it a little bit.
Yeah, we bounced around.
Are there any advantages of having a very clear-cut, defined culture like the sombrero?
All my Latin friends, I apologize.
We here, so fuck it, or pinata.
I apologize.
A taco.
I apologize. She gonna say Speedy Gonzalez next. Come on.
That is not Mexican. That is 1,000% American.
I'm glad you
they
didn't say
racist
it.
Ass.
I'm glad you didn't say it.
No.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
The advantages.
Oh, the advantages.
Is there an advantage of a collective culture? One that we all would agree is a culture, because we have not agreed or aligned that we already have it. If there were 7 elements that we all could agree, yes, this is black culture, what's the advantage of it? Jakari.
Be on code.
Yeah, to the point somebody said, we be on code. We'll be able to move in the same direction. And I think right now, because we don't have that, we're not moving in the same direction. We don't have that common understanding. But for me, that's the main advantage.
I struggle with that. Yeah. Because I think about other cultures, right? If I just think about Mexicans, are they moving collectively?
Yes.
I would say no.
Absolutely.
Why would you say no?
Or even because I think they buy into the same wanting to be white like every other ethnicity that's here. I think people have bought into, if you make this certain amount, if you do this, if you do that, if you move to the suburbs, somehow your life is better. I don't think Mexicans have escaped that narrative. I don't think Asians have escaped that narrative. I know the Cubans haven't, because we talk all about their ass in Florida, how they basically are white and they behave white. Well, and they're totally Republican.
They hate dark skin. They hate dark skin kids.
But I just don't think. I think we think other cultures are totally collective and they have divested from being white. I disagree with that.
I would say that there's no such thing as totally anything. Yeah, right. There's always gonna have some folks that's doing
I don't think that's outline. I think that's
and I don't think that
common.
them chasing better financial freedoms or financial gain is necessary. We want to make that a white thing. I think that's a world thing. Who doesn't want to be more financially secure, or or if we're still in a barter system, have more things to barter so you can get better things. So I think that's just natural. But what I will say is, now you might have a conversation with me about Asians in a certain regard, but with Latin folks, you will see, and we'll talk shit about them when they do it. It'll be 20 of them in the crib, figuring it all out, stacking that money so they can all move forward in a direction, right? Whereas as soon as our kids turn 18, we say, get them out, put them out.
That'd probably be barter culture too. But I go back to my Cuban example. I sat and watched an entire documentary of Latin folks talk about how the Cubans in Florida have now transitioned themselves to white. They behave white. They operate in white culture. They vote white. And that is part of the Latin community. So there's something to examine there. Are they really a collective?
That's a subset of the Latin community.
But it is the Latin community.
Subset. Yeah, but you're picking a small example of a much larger collective.
I don't think that's a small. I think we think it's small.
You just lumped all people of
Latin, right?
Whereas Cubans, Mexicans,
Latino caucus is at war right now.
Right
now, today.
Mm-hmm.
The Latino.
What are they at war about?
About what they should do as a collective.
Also, they're not in agreement either.
They're not in agreement.
Isn't that interesting?
Right now.
No.
Big fight last
week.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they all are like, every one of them is like, this is what we're gonna do. But the fact that they even got a caucus that is having a
we got a Black caucus.
Where? When's the last time they did shit?
Is the head of Black caucus?
Oh well, now that's it. Now I'm not
that goes back to Jamal's education point.
I knew we had.
Actually, I think it's Diddy is the head of.
Oh yeah. I think Dave Chappelle's up next.
I ain't on y'all. Jamal, let's get back to the question. If we could agree to 7 pillars, is there an advantage to having a culture? And why or why not?
Yes, there's an advantage to culture. I mean, the whole reason culture is a concept that we're discussing is because it's been proven when you have good culture, good things happen. And when you have poor culture, you have struggle. And here's the problem I'm having with our conversation, right?
Give it to us.
Our anecdotal evidence is based on the groups of people we've seen make it to America. You know what kind of people make it to America from other countries and nations? The hardest working, the most driven. They came over here with a mission. So when we see them, like the Asians, like everybody likes to talk about the Asian community, blah, blah, blah. You know how many billions of dumb Asians live back in Asia and not getting it done? But the ones we see here are always on point. You're really trying to make it happen until you get to that third generation. But your third generation of Asian Americans, they're teenagers. They're having those American problems. They're not doing it like mom and dad did it, right? Second generation, first generation, get it done. But by the time you get to third generation with any group, they all of a sudden have American culture, which is completely different. But my point is this. If culture is a residue of leadership and we lack leadership, then of course our culture is on this negative slant. And unfortunately, and we're all victims of this, we really look at our own people with a jaded eye. Like when society markets and promotes our worst 10%, it's quickly generalized to all of us. I mean, look at the people in this room. None of y'all are having the issues we're manifesting on all of Black culture, but Black culture sucks. Because baby mamas and what's the thing you wear on your head at the bonnets at the airport?
We don't have a monolith on baby mamas, but okay.
Yeah, just own it. But Mexicans, they're hard workers and all that, and Asians, they're smart, and any immigrant, blah blah blah. No man. First, shout outs to the ones that made it to America because they had to go through some stuff just to get here. So I do recognize their intestinal fortitude, desire, and determination. Those are special people that make it to America. Now, the people here that are quote unquote Black, well, man, you know, we came from a generation of some real strong folks. I mean, just for us to be here. But We've been here way past 3 generations, and we've been highly indoctrinated. And then I want to throw this out. We keep prioritizing white folk, right? I don't want to be the white savior on here, but every white folk ain't horrible. There's a lot. There's some.
I'm gonna say,
we quickly, every white person is this, and that ain't the case. Listen, what's really the case is there's a 1%. They control 45% of the resource and wealth in this world.
Yeah.
And they guys arguing and fighting over all kind of dumb stuff, especially like race. And we're just completely distracted from the fact that 1% owns 45% of the resources. And that's why we truly struggle. And to get a leadership that can divest us from this distraction of race and differences and start to embrace that, hey, we're all catching the same hell, even most white folks. And that's my man from the Panther Party. What's my brother name? Young teenager they killed back in the day because he realized.
Fred Hampton? No.
Fred Hampton. What's my man?
Little Bobby Hutton.
Judas.
I'm serious. I don't know who we talking about no more. Fred Hampton.
Long story short, man. Yeah. It goes without saying culture is important, but you got to have the right culture. And football teams call it a winning culture, right? And that's where it starts. And I tell you where it starts. It's leadership. We need somebody who will put us on the same page, who has thought it out and say, hey, here's what we need to be doing. And when it resonates, people say, yeah, you know what? That's right. And then you'll see us fly.
I nominate you.
Do you nominate him as tribute?
Jesus Christ! No.
I have
he can be part of the think tank, though. I
have an interesting question that's going to take us over, Brian. Is that okay? And then we'll wrap up. Because we talk a lot about Black culture, right? And the people that are part of our diaspora, the Caribbeans, the Africans, they hop in and out of being Black from time to time, right? When it serves them.
I wouldn't say that.
That's another discussion for another day. Should they be a part, if we were to create one, should they be a part of that culture? And why?
Who exactly are we talking about?
The Caribbeans and Africans.
The Caribbeans and Africans. Should they be a part of the Caribbeans and Africans that are now in America?
Yeah.
Permanently.
Yeah. As permanent as that they can be, if their visas will allow.
I mean, what if they were born?
I think if I'm just going to be racist, I'm going to keep it coming.
Jesus, I see. Good Lord. Should they be part of it?
Yeah.
Do they want to be part of it is the question.
I don't know, but that's not the question, because I'd have to go ask one, and I would assume they'd say no because they are steadfast. We have no culture. They also think we're lazy and ain't shit, but I think that placates to the whole us not having culture conversation. Jakari, thoughts?
I was in Amsterdam one time.
Okay.
Year was 2005. And I'm walking down through the streets, and this African dude walks up, and he was like, brother. And he just kind of stopped me and just started chatting me up. And he was like, I love you. And he was like, I'm like, I love you too. And he's like, you know why I love you? He's like, because we're the same, right? And that's always kind of stuck with me. Like, when I think and I talk about Black people, I talk about the diaspora. I don't talk about just Black people in this country, right? Because we were shipped all over the place, or we traveled all over the place. And so, our story, the story of Black people is not just Black people here in America. And I think because we have that common land, we have to have a common future. If we are to be liberated, then it has to be together.
Damn, Poe ASOS people. Heads are exploding right now. Jamal.
I'm sorry. What was the question?
I can't believe he got distracted.
He was shaking his head too.
he was listening. He was like, "That's some old teacher shit." Like, yeah, I hear you, kid.
In this development of a Black culture, should we include the Caribbeans and Africans?
Yes, ma'am. I think Jakari hit it right on the head with his explanation. First and foremost, we're acting as if the rest of the world hasn't been colonized with white supremacy. Like, everybody has had a punch in the face by white supremacy, and the resulting factor punched in the face by white supremacy is saying, okay, wait, I'm not black, right? That's the essence of it. So if we recognize that, when we recognize that anybody with a hue can be commodified as black, is a part of the culture. Now, they might not want to be. They might even fight against it. They might even try to deny it. I mean, we have a ton of black folks, you know, all skin folk and kin folk. We got that situation. But the point is, yeah, you're in until you're not, right? And that's the essence of it. We may have to stop unifying under skin color and start unifying under mindset. And when we get our mindset right, that's when you'll see a culture that can transition that 1% that's controlling 45% of the resources, because that's the issue. Our standard of living is why we have an issue with racism. If we could change our quality of life, I mean, if you ask anybody, hey, what's your end game for getting rid of racism? It better be to improve my quality of life. Let my quality of life be based on my meritocracy. You know, what am I worth? What can I do? And once you get there, then that's all you can ask for. So short story, long story short, yes, culture is important, and we all need to, anybody who's a part of who wants to be a part is a part.
Yeah, agreed there. That's why I started my original question. Do they want to be is the real question. Should they be?
They have no choice.
Yeah.
You gonna make them.
You in, mother.
You in here.
You in. Yeah, I absolutely. I think only in unity and power, and the brothers that spoke eloquently about it, we're talking about African Americans, right? Like that was the nature, that was the purpose of the conversation. But we were dispersed and sold and distributed all over the place, right? Mm-hmm. And moved about to different places. So, yeah, I think anybody that as Mom made a good point about mindset too. That's an interesting point. But yeah, I think we should all, if we're to win this, we gotta all come together to make it happen. Whether or not we can make that a reality, I doubt.
I don't disagree with any of this. I really hate all the diaspora breakdowns. I hate the conversation when people talk about, what was that, last year or the year before, where they were talking about all the the blacks from Britain getting all the movie roles. Mm-hmm. And I just hate those conversations because they seem silly and divisive. The only time I think they're important is the reparations conversation, because I think there's a important distinction there as far as what descendants of American slaves are owed. But outside of that one instance, I think, yeah, we should absolutely operate as a collective.
Well, we shouldn't get no fucking reparations now.
Oh my God! Stop saying that.
I told you, until we get economic education with it, all we're gonna do is get it back to Gucci anyway.
It don't matter. It's our money.
No, I don't like that. If we're gonna do something good with it, then do something good. We're just gonna throw it right back into the white capitalist system. Then.
But you can do that anyway. If they gave us all $2 million, what would you do with it? You would throw it in the stocks and you'd buy property. Last time I checked, white people own that and white people own property. So it's going back to the white folks either way.
I buy black only property.
No such thing.
If a black person owns it, it's black property.
That's why I don't like that argument. No matter what you do with that money, whether it's good or evil, it's going to white folks. So what's the problem?
Not necessarily. If we all got $2 million and we decide to make Black Wall Street a thing again, all across the country,
then fine. But how many of us gonna sit and collectively say, "Look, I'm gonna take South Shore. We gonna buy up every."
That's my point.
Because we don't have culture.
Home.
That's right. We ain't got no damn culture to base it off of.
No, it's because
I bet them Latinos take over Pilsen.
We'll take it back.
We'll take it back, right? Take it back. Take it back.
We're too invested in white folks. That's
Did we freeze those Cream B?
It's the internet is going
A little glitchy. That's
all
right.
Well,
all they can hear us.
That was my last question. This was fun. I guess we should end with last words.
Always guess first, Jamal. So you seem to be the only one that's not frozen.
Am I really? I'm the only one that's lying. Hey, welcome to the show. Getting it in. I appreciate y'all having me on, man. And this is a very important conversation. If we're ever going to get to a point where we can see a mass movement, an upliftment of the culture, it's going to start with education, right? The one thing that's going on in this world is the miseducation of all people, right? And that miseducation hurts us the most, right? I mean, the way people see black folks without it even being defined, no one ever took the time to define it, just, that skin color. The way we treat people with this skin color is abominable. And the only way we can get beyond it is by knowing it. The antidote to racism is education. The antidote to poverty is education. You want to change your life, know some things. The more you know, the better you live. So whatever we can do to educate ourselves, I'm all for that. Shout out.
That's what's up. Jakar?
I too would like to say I'm happy to be here. I'm not happy that Jamal is here.
You loved it.
Nah, I always wanted to be on a show with Jamal, so props. I think ultimately I agree. You know, I think we all agree, right? I think we're all entering this conversation with the same interest, right? We're all interested in this idea of the liberation of Black people, right? However you might define what liberation is, but for me, I think it's a little bit deeper than just Black people. I think it's about civilization. And I think understanding or having a culture is our way to re-own our position as the cultivators of civilization, which I think is important. But I think important for us to be able to do that, we have to know each other, and we have to be able to move as a collective, so that we can then talk to other people about, hey, this is how you be a good human, and we have that history that tells us that we know how to be good humans. We know what it means to care about other people. We know what it means to have and move in a common direction. But to my point earlier, Jamal, I think it's not about us having a culture. Ultimately, I think we are, as Black people, our culture, which is why you see Black influence in everything. We're the cultivators of all civilization. So it's up to us to really kind of be the model for what everyone else needs to be.
Does that mean you switch positions? You do have a culture
I told
now?
you in the beginning, I have an opinion, and I can move in any direction because the mission is still the same.
All right, look, I'm with it. I just making sure Shontelle is clear.
Final thoughts?
First of all, Jamal, thank you for hopping in hella last minute with your.
He was just gonna do all the shit in the comments anyway, so we might as well let him go ahead.
With your insightful, perspective, greatly appreciated. Loved having you. Thank you, Jakari. Same thing. I mean, I don't really have anything to add on what other than Black people need reparations, but I don't have anything to add on what they say. They said it far better than I could have.
That's a rarity, gentlemen.
I know.
Take that as the ultimate compliment.
Some men shut me up. Yes, that's rare.
I wasn't even going there, but all right. That's no. This is Thank you guys. You guys are jumping in. Venita, hope everything. I know you're not listening right now, but sending out positive vibes. Wherever you had to jump off, I hope everything turns out all right. I was kind of just shit started a little bit with the we don't have a culture thing. We had to argue it. We couldn't argue. Hey, we got culture. I had to argue the counterpoint a little bit. I think we do obviously have culture. I wish it was just clearer and we all embraced it a little bit more educated about its roots and where it comes from and where it can take us. More importantly, and I'm hopeful that we will get there. I don't know how. Jamal made a great point about leadership. I don't know where that next leader is coming from. I'm so sick of referencing Malcolm and Martin. I don't know what to do with myself.
Why can't it be Tamika Mallory?
It could be. It could be.
It could be you.
It could be.
It could be Brian. Whoa!
Y'all don't want that.
Be rooftop parties.
Y'all don't want that. Y'all think y'all get Lori shit, boy. The world would be a party. But no, I'm so often proud of us and our accomplishments and what we've overcome. And then I'm turned around and immediately disappointed by some other silly shit we do. But I do not want that to define us. I'd rather the wins define us than the losses. I think that's important to focus on. What are we on next week?
Are we still in agreement about Casino is greater than Goodfellas?
Oh, are we going to do that one?
Yeah, that was what we agreed on.
All right, cool. I'm just making sure. So next week.
Unless we're going to talk about reparations.
We are not going to talk about reparations again yet. Umar Johnson, please.
Umar Johnson, absolutely not.
Look, he will not steal any of my money.
Ron, no.
So next week we're gonna bring up. We haven't done a movie conversation in quite some time. I know a lot of people like those. So we're gonna circle back. We're not gonna review a movie necessarily. We're gonna have a debate whether or not Casino is a superior movie to Goodfellas. which is a blasphemous take. I can't believe Shontelle is going to try to argue.
Somebody gave that to us. I didn't say I agree.
Who's on which side? Let me see if I'm tuning into this madness.
I'm in the middle. I feel like they're equal,
which still makes no sense.
It's the same damn people playing the same damn roles. How could you say they? Al Pacino plays. Well, he's not in both.
Those are not the same.
One is a great.
I'm sorry, Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci.
One is a great story being told, and the other is just a bunch of stars coming in doing gangster stuff. So,
which one is which? Are you talking about Goodfellas? Is the latter?
Goodfellas is phenomenal. Casino, bunch of stars doing one last let's get together, be gangster type joint.
I'd almost say we need to pivot this and make this a Goodfellas versus Godfather conversation. I think that would have more merit.
Because it'd win. Godfather is a terrible movie.
Godfather's not a terrible movie.
Ooh, hot take. I'm talking about the first one. Terrible.
Yeah, you can say the third one was trash. I wouldn't argue.
That's terrible too.
But the first two,
the second one,
American cinema classics.
Second one, I would agree. The first one,
oh my goodness! All right, so we're gonna figure that out. We'll put that. We'll do a poll.
Yeah.
And see where y'all want to go with. But we will be doing Goodfellas versus another gangster movie next week. Y'all be safe out there. Have some fun in the Chi. Weather's warm. It's gonna cool off a little bit, but I think we have finally got some official spring. Everybody listening out throughout the rest of the country and throughout the world. Because I know my man in Colombia watches us all the time. Hey, God bless. Good night, and we will see you next week.
Ooh, Once Upon a Time in America.